Conference recording started.
All right. Greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight is greetings. Sister Narcissa.
Good evening.
Is that you, Sister Narcissa?
Yes, it is me, 410-336-6301.
Starting now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Am I on mute?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes.
No, I just wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, as far as a roll call, on the Zoom line, we have myself, Brother John, Division 421. We have Brother Frank, representing Division 106 in Baltimore. Sister Narcissa, representing Division 106 in Baltimore. Sister Tania, Second Lady Vice President here in Atlanta. And our Lady President, Mama Amina, in Atlanta as well. So, just 5 of us right now. Hopefully some people will join as we get going, but I do want to start to be a little bit more punctual. We've been doing this, every week now. I feel like the quicker we get started, the quicker we can finish and get some rest for the rest of the week. So with respect for everybody's time, we will go ahead and get started. First thing we do is pledge to the red, black, and green flag. So if you could please stand, or if you can, push black fist in the air, find the red, black, and green flag, or think of one in your mind. Repeat after me. I commit my body, mind, and spirit.
Commit my body,
My
mind,
body, mind, and spirit.
To the protection, defense, and security.
To the protection, defense, and security.
Of the red, black, and green.
Of the red, black, and green.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa.
And the liberation of her scattered black children.
And the liberation of scattered black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled.
And I promise
our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle
In order that
will neither falter nor fail until all black people are free and united.
Till all black people are
free and united.
Through one God.
Through
one God. One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
And one destiny.
And one destiny. Race first.
Race first.
Race first.
So, been doing the oath. I'll briefly do it. You guys can, just think about it and substitute your name, or you can read along with me. The oath itself, it comes from some of the Message to the People books, not the ones that Dr. Tony Martin wrote, but some of the other ones that you can get from Amazon. They have the oath that was was signed by Eleanor White, who was part of the first class. She was in the 1937 class, commissioner of the state of Illinois. But her oath is included in some of the books, and that's where I just wanted to share with everybody the source of that. It was signed September 23rd, 1927. So I'm not sure if this is when they had the exam or how that worked, but we know from the introduction around that time, September 1927 or 37. That should be 37, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that should be 37, typo on my part. Around that time, that's when they were doing the first class. But anyway, I, John, do solemnly swear before Almighty God that I have entered upon the instructions of the African School of Philosophy conducted by Marcus Garvey for no other purpose than to serve the Negro race through the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, of which he is President General, and that I shall not use the knowledge so gained to promote or advance the interests of any other organization. I shall confine myself always to the service of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and work within the framework of the organization for any promotion I may desire for the improvement of my race. I shall never divulge or reveal any of these lessons I receive to anyone, and shall never allow the lessons or records thereof to fall into the hands of anyone, and shall safeguard the same with my life from falling into the hands of other races. I shall use all my energy and ability to advance the interests of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and shall be in rebellion and shall never be in rebellion against it. Excuse me. And to this I swear myself, my honor, and sacred trust. And should I fail this oath, may the just reward be meted out to me. So help me God. So that's the oath that the students take before they were given this information, or as they were given this information. So we'll start with the review of lesson 8. Before I start, I guess I'm going to open the floor with any questions or comments in regards to lesson 8, the social system. Ready to just get going. Questions? Okay. Let me see. So the first question is, what society, what is its purpose? Before we even ask a question on lesson 8, there's a question. Yeah. There's a question from lesson 7. Lesson 7, character, that builds on lesson 8. So the first question, the first question of tonight comes from lesson 7, and it is question number 2 from lesson 7. Who defines the standard for good character? Do we remember who defines the standards for good character? Nobody knows.
A society. I don't know.
Confident, Sister Tania. Goodness gracious, you had it absolutely right.
Y'all wouldn't hear. Well, that's what I figured. Thank you. Yeah.
But you've taken the course before, so but yes, in lesson 7, Garvey said that society of the time in which you live defines the standard for good character. So that's that's something to keep in mind as we're reading, going through lesson 8. But society defines good character. Defines good character of individuals. So first question of lesson 8 is, what is a society and what is its purpose? Based on lesson 8. If you know, and if you,
I'm guessing again, and is that what is the purpose?
What is a society and what is its purpose? For the lesson 8.
Isn't it a group of people with the same goals? And the purpose, I thought, was to improve like the well-being of its people.
That sounds pretty accurate. Give me 1 second. Let me find it in the. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Anybody want to add to that? So he says on page 60, society is an organization of mankind to safeguard and protect its own interests. Its purpose, part of its purpose is to maintain the greatest good for the greatest number. But yes, I agree with you're not incorrect. I don't want y'all to think that just because I'm pulling verbatim stuff doesn't mean that what people are saying is incorrect. Part of the reason I want to know what we think, even if we don't know exactly what the right answer is. If Garvey says, what's the best solution for Africa? If we don't know the exact answer, I still, sometimes it's still good to hear what people say. So, but you're right, my brother. Next question. What are characteristics of a society, or how is society made evident? How do you know that society exists, basically?
Is it the Never mind. I don't know.
What do you think?
I think it's the group of people that come together in unison. You know what I mean? To spearhead. You know what I mean? Bouncing off of like the other ants to navigate. You know what I mean? The people to the best outcome possible for the most people.
Pretty much, you're on the right path. The people are coming together to make the discussions to establish what?
To make discussions to establish what?
What are people coming together as a society? What are they coming together to establish? What helps maintain society?
Establish their community.
When people are coming together and they're making these discussions, what are they trying to establish?
Government rules.
Government, yes. Well, Garvey says by regulation, rules and laws was what I was looking for. Members of society must obey laws, but let me see where I'll pull it from the book. But okay. So first he says society is an organization of mankind to safeguard and protect its own interests. When society is organized, it is made evident by regulations, rules, and laws. Every member of the society must obey the said rules, regulations, and laws. That's just trying to get into the foundation of this lesson. Questions on that? So society is an organization of mankind, and you can identify them by the establishment of rules and laws. What is the alternative to the organized system of society? What does Garvey say is the only alternative to the organized system of society?
Lawlessness.
In a sense. Anybody else?
Anarchy.
In a sense, you're all on the right path. The word Garvey uses rebellion.
Okay.
But same, it's synonymous. Garvey says, therefore, always live up to the organized system of society of which you form a part. The only alternative to this is rebellion. We should never join rebellious movements against society, except when there is good reason and justification for it. The only alternative to organized society is rebellion. 1 second. All right. Next question. What does Garvey mean when he says, quote, you should always seek to have something at stake in the community in which you live? When Garvey says, quote, you should always have something at stake in the community in which you live. What was he saying about that?
Shouldn't you have property?
Yes. Yes. Own property. But what is the significance of owning property, I guess?
Because then you care. You're more connected to the community.
Yeah.
And it's a resource because we have to what is it? Gather our resources or collect. You know what I mean? Own resources within our own community. Control the resources in our own community.
Yes, but there's another aspect to it that Garvey talks about. Other than
is that with the passing of laws? That's who the politicians pay attention to, the people that own the real estate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
He says own property. He talks about being worthwhile citizens, evidence of status, and he says government recognizes property owners. So that's part of the reason why, as a society, and I mean, we have to think about it as a society. You want to have something at stake in the society. You know, you want it makes a better society when people have something at stake. You know, it's not you're not expecting someone else to do for you. You know, you understand that you have to do your part, and when everyone does their part, the society it works well. Any questions on that one? Okay, and this is when I used to like, I would have questions when we got to this part of this lesson and into the lessons. Next question is, what type of attitude should we adopt toward police and why?
Obey the police at all times. Keep both hands on the wheel. Be respectful to the police. But he was just like, don't dip into lawlessness, and don't ever have like the reputation of going against the police, because the police are represent protection of society. I forgot what word he used, but the police pretty much are the example of upholding the law in society. So when you go against the police, you seem lawless. And once you get that stigma placed on you, it's hard to get it off.
Excellent. The only thing I would challenge is, what was the first thing you said was obedience. I like the respect aspect of it. But obedience, that's when I don't know. I mean, I guess if we do it respectfully, and if the police are respectful, we can be. But sometimes it seems like, you know, it's a challenge to our humanity. You know, when some of the things that police ask. So, but respect definitely. Garvey's answer. Anybody want to add to that? What attitude should we adopt toward police and why? I think the brother did give a great explanation. But Garvey said friendly. As the brother said, the police are supposed to protect the citizens. They're not supposed to be public enemy, but the public protector.
Right. So the police is supposed to protect them and respect the citizens. I mean,
could y'all hear me on the PowerPoint on the Zoom?
You fade in and out.
Okay. Well, did y'all get the last question of what type of attitude should we adopt toward police and why? Did you get the answer?
Yeah, she said respect.
Well, no. Garvey, well, I might have went out. Garvey's answer was friendly. The police are supposed to protect the citizens. He says, not that the police is not supposed to be the public enemy, but the public protector. So this is what Garvey says. I was in conflict with this when I first read it a couple years ago. I understand it a little bit more now, but this is one of those things why, as leaders, this is not necessarily for everybody, not necessarily for the normal member, because they may disagree or have some type of opinion or a long discussion about why we should have a different opinion. But we just have to have a level, even if we do disagree, we just have to have a level of understanding of Garvey's philosophies. And I think that's what these lessons are about. At least that's what I take away from it. Anything on question 5 before we move on?
At the same time, and I mean, the police acted no different back then than they do now.
Yeah.
And I think that he noticed that a lot of times when you start butting heads with the police, then the police come in and start cracking down on your community, cracking heads and, gathering people up. I still find it amazing how Malcolm X's father bashed himself in the back of the head and then laid down on the railroad tracks, all to commit suicide. You know what I mean? And on top of that, you have a long history of the police in the corner, you know what I mean, and in cahoots with each other. So, nothing has changed. And he just felt it was better just to, to be like, hey, yeah, okay, right. You know what I mean? Just have like a healthy decorum when dealing with them. You know what I mean? Just so you don't get that backlash. Still do what you're doing. Just don't clash.
Yes. Excellent point, my brother. And that's something that comes up later in the lesson as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. But again, from the introduction, this is Garvey at 1937, 3 years before his unfortunate passing. But the editor tells us that this was a summation of a lifetime of organizing, and Garvey's chance to speak freely, without fear of any type of criticism, but to give his honest opinion based on his life experiences on what the next, as the book says, cadre of UNIA leaders should understand. But yes, this is Garvey later on in his life and lessons learned. Good point. Next question is, why should we help the police to maintain order? This is why should we help the police to maintain order, according to Garvey? In my opinion.
Because it's our community.
True. Yes. Yeah. I mean, pretty much. Anybody else want to add to that? But yes, that's what it comes down to. It's our community. Garvey says if the community loses peace, you will have riots. So the protesting and things like that, it seems cool. But when the police stop responding, and we have crime amongst ourselves in our own neighborhoods, it's not cool anymore. So we have to have a established system to protect the citizens, especially those that can't protect themselves. So, any questions on why we should help the police to maintain order, according to Garvey? Okay, now that we've gotten to the riotous behavior in the society and going against the laws, what does Garvey recommend? What 2 ways does Garvey recommend us to achieve our objectives in a civilized community? He recommends 2 things.
He suggests 2 ways for what now?
Let me see. What 2 ways does Garvey recommend that we achieve objectives in a civilized community? how do civilized communities achieve objectives? How do individuals in a civilized community achieve objectives, basically? If we're not to have riots and things like that, what are ways that we achieve objectives?
Become lawmakers.
Become the lawmakers. Not a bad way.
I mean, participate in the political process.
Yes, I'm there with you on that one. Anybody else? I agree with that one. Participate in the political process. Okay, I can. Well, let me just go ahead. Good reason. Wait, good reason and good judgment. Let's see what this is. Page 70. Wrong page. I need to check that one. I might have had the wrong stuff in there. This is the police stuff. We should help the police. I was about the friendly attitude. Always help. Welcome the police. Police are never public enemy, public protector. Help police maintain order. Because lose peace, you have riots. Never join, keep away. Utilize names and agendas. Extreme. There it is. Okay. Whatever object is desired in a civilized community, it can always be achieved by the approach of good reason and good judgment. Always use good reason and good judgment. But I guess that's just, I mean, that's, that's not like that's just what Garvey said, basically. But I agree with the political approach, and I think that comes up later. So let's stick with that. Next question. What is the national aspiration of the race, of the African race? And a tip, we talked about this in lesson 3. This is something that comes back from lesson 3. What is the national aspiration of the race? It's like the when we say one God, one aim. I've talked about it in that fashion. What is the national aspiration of the race? Why shouldn't we be worried about rioting locally?
Self-governance.
A free Africa.
Than that, but yeah. Say again?
A free Africa.
Yes, sir. Free Africa. Y'all on the right path. It is to find expression, not in revolution. You're in the community. You are not in the community to overthrow the law in that community. You are there to live under the law. The national aspiration of the race is to find its expression, not in revolution where you are established when you are under other people's government, but to accomplish the end in Africa. So we shouldn't.
So our national aspirations is to accomplish our ends toward Africa.
The national aspiration of the race is to find expression, not in revolution where you are established when you are under other people's government. So not to have revolutions, where we are. That's not the national aspiration. The national aspiration is to accomplish the end in Africa. Is to have that great revolution in Africa.
So we're not fighting to stay here or to overthrow the government here. We're fighting to establish our own government in Africa.
Correct. Yes, and I think, I don't know if we talked about it previously or we will talk about it later, but Garvey said, you know, it's not our goal to fight against the government. You know, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to free our people and liberate the continent of Africa. So we, in regards to focus and priorities and principles, although we must have a local focus, and even in our aims and objectives, I believe it's objective number 7. It says that we must have, you know, ambassadors and commissionaries to make sure that all of our people are taken care of and not taken advantage of on a local basis. But we can't get too distracted and make that our top priority. We got to understand what that, at least in my mind, what that one aim is about. You know, the global liberation of our people with the power base in Africa. I think that's the best way I can say it. Questions, comments on that one? I'll read it one more time for everybody. But the paragraph says, we are not in a community to overthrow the law in that community. You are there to live under the law. The national aspiration of the race is to find expression, not in revolution where you are established when you are under other people's government, but to accomplish the end in Africa. Therefore, never preach rebellion, because you will disrupt the society in which you will live, and it will crush you. So, we're not trying to have rebellion locally. You know, our goal is not even rebellion in Africa, but, you know, revolution.
To govern ourselves in Africa. That's what.
Say again.
I said to govern ourselves in in Africa.
Yes. Yeah, because we can't be too worried about things when we're under other people's government. I think that's one of the big things.
Did you say not even a rebellion in Africa?
No, no rebellion here.
Well, no, she's asking me. Therefore, let me read it again. You are not to. Wait, you are to live under the law. The national aspiration of the race is to find expression. He doesn't say nothing about rebellion. He says revolution. Not in revolution where you are established when you're under other people's government, but to accomplish the end in Africa. So I guess he's talking about revolution in Africa, not rebellion. Then he said, never preach rebellion because you will disrupt the society in which you will live, and it will crush you. So our goal is revolution in Africa. We're not too worried about, you know, revolutions here and there, unless it's Africa. That's our main goal. Okay.
All
right. Next question. What is the highest service a citizen can refer to in a community or organized society? So in regards to a community or organized society, what's the highest service a citizen can provide?
And I know the answer, but I just can't think of it.
This is a good one. So this is
an
unwritten aim and objective that we must uphold. So anybody know what is the highest service a citizen? Garvey says, what's the highest service a citizen can refer to in a community or organized society? But what's the highest service a citizen can provide to a community or organized society? There's a lot of ways to answer this too.
There are a lot of ways to answer that one.
But I want to hear something before I go, because I don't want to just give it out. I want to know what people think. If we were to have a nation or society, what's the highest service that we could ask of the individuals of that nation or society?
Protection or
President.
military.
I like that. See, there we go. Protection or military. I'm with you on that. What was the other thing? Somebody said something.
But Mason, I would say self-development. If each person is
that's
their greatest self, then the whole organization is going to be its greatest.
right. So your service of the utilization of your talent, whatever it is.
Right.
I don't disagree. But that wasn't where Garvey was going. But I don't disagree. Should I go to the answer? Anybody else want to try? Highest service a citizen can offer to a community or organized society.
Themselves.
Leader.
Garvey says maintain peace. I'll go to the book on this one. Garvey says, quote, the highest service a citizen can refer to in a community or organized society is to maintain and preserve peace. When peace is disturbed, it is likely that anybody may get hurt, and sometimes most innocently. I don't disagree with what's being said, but I was more in line with the military service, like protection, maintaining order and maintaining society. You know, I think that's something that we forget about and we may take for granted. But maintaining what we consider society and peace. Questions, comments on that? We got 15 minutes. I think we'll be able to. Next question. How does Garvey define politics? So what are politics according to Garvey, as well as I looked it up according to Google, but I think this is an important question, you know, something that we talk about in the community, but a big part of one thing I like about the UNIA and Garveyism is definition and having the same definition for things. So according to us, what are politics? Anybody?
Isn't everything? Didn't he say everything is politics or something?
Nope. I think that was more like everything is intelligence, or intelligence is everything.
Never mind.
Speaking of politics, they had the runoff election today in Atlanta for May.
It was like a system or something, right, Brother John? A system that protects people or something? I think protects the rights. Was that supposed to be?
People. Ooh, yeah. It's synonymous with society. I'm with you on that. System that protects people. Anybody want to add? I'll give my. I remember saying something about it's a way of dealing. It does say something about protection, but it's like a way of dealing with like laws that are not written or something like that. So first thing is Garvey says politics is science of government that protects those human rights that are not protected by law. So yes, that's what Garvey says. Let's see on page. This is on politics.
Yeah.
Mr. Ron, please. But Garvey says politics is a science of government that protects those human rights that are not protected by law. Law is already established. Politics add to the law or change the laws. You should play politics to get good government. So it's like the management of unwritten laws or the gray area between laws is how I understand Garvey defining politics. Does anybody know how Google defines politics?
What does Google say?
Google says, and I took out a couple words, but it says the same thing. activities associated with the governance of a country or area, especially among individuals hoping to achieve power. But Google talks about politics, governance of areas or countries, individuals trying to achieve power. So, I mean, it's just information, it ain't really critical, just so we know the difference between what Garvey says in his lesson and what modern day Google is saying. That may change tomorrow, but as of right now, that's how Google defines politics. So why does Garvey say that we should know government officials? And this goes back to the leadership lesson, where Garvey said that we should know people in the community and we should know certain individuals. But why does Garvey say that we should know government officials? Anybody?
I guess so. You need a favor that help you.
Yeah, I would go with, like if you're in trouble, they can help you, or like yep, or a favor. I'll go with that answer. I like that.
All right, I like that as well. Before I go to the exact answer, again, I like how this book builds on itself. So right now we're in lesson 8, the social system, and he's talking about knowing government officials. But you can read on page 22, lesson 2, leadership. Garvey says a leader should always make an effort to be known in his community. He should acquaint himself with everything that is happening. He must know the governor or the state. He must know the governor of the state or county, the secretary or his state, secretary of his state or his colonial secretary. He must know the mayor of his city and all the members of legislature. He must know the bishops of the city, administrative heads of all government departments, all the preachers, doctors, and lawyers, and prominent businessmen. But yeah, answer was we should know government officials just in case we get in trouble. Let me go to, I'll bring it back to the book. To help when you are in trouble, exactly right. And Garvey says on page 72, 72? It can't be 72. It's gotta be, oh yeah, it is 72. We haven't been diplomacy yet. 8 minutes of diplomacy. 72. Oh, there we go. Always try to know the mayor of your city and the government of your state out of the country. Try to know the government officials also. Try to know them before you have trouble is to get help when you are in trouble. Not to know them is to be at a disadvantage when you are brought before them. Always treat them courteously and friendly, even if you don't mean it. Always let them believe you are friendly. So, absolutely right. Garvey says we should know these individuals just in case we get in trouble. And again, this is later on in Garvey's life, after the trial, after deportation. So these are lessons learned. And I just imagine, what was going through Garvey's mind, just thinking like, man, I should have, made friends with these judges or these senators or things like that. But it's a blessing for us that we have that information, and we're able to learn from that. But questions, comments on why Garvey says that we should know government officials? Okay. What is something that we must never do in regards to politics, and specifically in regards to politicians? What's something that we must never do specifically in regards to politicians? So, Garvey just says it straightforward. Like, we should never do this.
Bribe them.
Bribe them? Close? Close?
Trust them.
I'll never trust them.
Garvey says.
Is that the answer?
No, it's not trust. It's Garvey says you must never sell yourself to the politician. You must get around him in the most skillful manner, get all your rights and the rights of other people depending upon out of him without selling yourself to him, to keep him in office, especially if he is not a good man in the community. Yeah, so don't sell yourself to keep politicians in office. Don't get bribed. All right. Yeah, never sell yourself to the politician. What should we do to bring about reforms and things that we think are right for our communities? If we think something is right for our community and we think we want reform for the community, instead of rioting, what should we do?
Vote.
Absolutely right. Garvey just basically says make your vote count, but let's see. Always make your vote count for bringing about reforms you and others think are right for your community. Never exchange it for money. You should see that every citizen that has a vote does vote on election day, especially when you have reforms to be enacted. So if we want change, first thing we should be doing is voting and organizing, obviously, but and having reforms that can be voted on. Is it okay on that one?
Right, because you can tell even today what they're trying to stop people from doing, the rights of people voting here in Georgia, especially.
Excellent segue. So next question is, and I want to, what must we fight to maintain and or acquire in regards to politics globally? So we can fight to maintain it here, but if others don't have it, fight so that they can acquire it. But globally, in regards to politics, what must we always fight to maintain?
The right to vote.
Do we know what that's called? What the word is called? Because I had to look it up. It's in the book, but I don't know if y'all know.
Suffrage.
Look at that. There it is. Suffrage, correct. Yes. As Mama Amina was saying, you know, they even today they're attacking our right to vote. And I looked at it in the book and I read it before, and I just now looked it up, but I had read over that word suffrage, you know, and I was just thinking like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Got to maintain suffrage. I don't know what it was, but suffrage is the right to vote. So if we have it, we must fight to maintain it. And for our brothers and sisters that don't have it, we must fight for them to be able to acquire that. We good on that one? Okay. In regards to the UNIA, this is just a straightforward, simple question. But do we know who handles the international policies of the organization?
Our international policies?
Who handles the international policies of the UNIA? What individual or department would handle the international policies of the Universal Legal Improvement Association? According to the lessons, so it may not be what we actually do. Greetings.
Baltimore division. We bought in Nigeria.
Well, I ain't trying to get nobody in trouble. Ain't about that. But let me see. I'm in the book.
So who handles the policies? Our international policies. Which segment?
I just saw it. All I remember seeing something that said international officers. I don't recollect the name though. Well, are you asking from the book or you asking from like the HEC?
Either, but actually from the book specifically, but either way you know it or would answer it. How if someone was to ask us, a new person, who handles the international policies of our organization, what would be what according to the lessons, what would be the answer? It may be different according to actual policy. Who handles the international policies, or who should handle the international policies of the organization? Brother Everett, you said it though.
So it was international officers?
Yes.
Okay.
Garvey says, quote, leave all policies of an international character affecting the organization to the international officers. Don't complicate yourself with your government. So in regards to how governments interact with each other, we shouldn't necessarily, I mean, if it gets to that level.
Did you say international officers or international officers?
Officers, yeah, with an ER, officers. And let me show something really quick. So everybody's officers on the call, you should be aware of this flow chart. This is the High Executive Council flow chart. President Michael Duncan on top, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, first, second, third, fourth, Assistant President Generals. The reason why I'm showing this is Office of International Organizer would be under Second Assistant President General. I'm not necessarily sure if this office is staffed, but from a policy organization standpoint, based on the lessons, things may be actually different, but this would be a good first approach if you don't know anything else. We should work through the Second Assistant President General because he holds the office of the International Organizer. So that was the reason for asking that question, was to kind of show the flow chart and the individuals that hold the office that has those responsibilities. Any questions or comments on that? A couple more questions. I think we'll be okay on time. Yeah, international officers, flow chart. So Second President General would be the contact that I'm aware of for international policies. Start repeating. All right, what are two signs of good government? According to Garvey, the two signs of good government. And it can come from what we read.
Stable economy and your people are pleased. I don't know.
Garvey says, let's see. So Garvey says good governments always put down riots. That's one thing. So we again be careful of rioting, especially if you're under a good government. And good government settles political difficulties in the interest of society. Let me read this one. So Garvey says constitutional political agitation is not a riot. If you are a citizen, you have the right of public assembly. You have the right to protest against anything that is politically wrong. But that does not suggest that you must riot, because good government always puts down riots. Good government always has a way to settle its political difficulties in the interest of society and the community in which you are a part and in which you have a voice.
So what do you say about this United States with that January the 6th put down right there at the Capitol? That wasn't, they didn't put that down. People would have been outraged, huh?
I mean, will we call America a good government? First.
Evidently, yeah, you got that right.
So, I think some part of America was, I think a decent part of America was complicit with what went on that day. So, I think that's the first question is what does a good government look like? A couple more questions. We'll get to the reading for this evening. Just got two more questions. When we riot against a government, when we riot against the government, who are we rioting against?
Ourselves.
Absolutely right. When you riot against your government, you are rioting against yourself. What does that mean?
The government is supposed to be. The government is supposed to be for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So when you riot against the institution that's put in place to protect the people, then you're rioting against the security that you have for your own self.
Garvey says the government, I'm going to show it when I show the next question, but Garvey says the government cannot exist without the people. But we are the government. We have to understand that. I think that's something, we didn't necessarily have that right for a long time. A lot of our people didn't have that right for a long time in this country. But, I think that's one of the things Garvey brought was that level of understanding of not only how to manage politics locally, but how to establish your own politics globally. So we have to be aware of both of those aspects as leaders in the UNIA, the international aspect as well as the local political aspect. But the government is the people. So when you riot against the government, we're rioting against ourselves and the policies that people created. So, all right, last question. When the Constitution, and this is for the OGs on here from the UNIA, but when the Constitution is insufficient to give you all the protection you need, how do you change it? So that can be from the UNIA or from America, but as a citizen, you should be protected or have the rights established by the Constitution. When the Constitution is insufficient to give you the protection that you need, how do you change it according to Garvey? Last question, come on, somebody.
You amend it. You change it with the amendment.
Yes. Voting.
And then you. Go ahead.
Voting, let's see, political action, vote for change, do not riot for change. But I'll read the last paragraph and I'll bring those two questions together. When you riot against your government, you are rioting against yourself because the government cannot exist without you. That is why there is a constitution. When the Constitution is insufficient to give you all the protection you need, change it by political action. Vote for change, do not riot for change. So we have voting, amendments, political process. Where, we want to have a established, a well-organized society, and not a rebellious, riotous, group of people. I think that's what this lesson is going to communicate.
Can I ask you a question, man?
Yes.
I kind of understand like the whole riot and the political process, but we have a political process where we're watching the police lynch people, and the political process came through to vote against an anti-lynching law. They voted against, bringing in the police. They voted against dropping police immunity. They voted, you know what I'm saying? They voted against everything that would be like in our interest. You know what I mean? In maintaining, a peaceful society, which was supposed to be one of like the goals. You know what I'm saying? They went against all of these things, and and people get tired, man. People get upset, man, and they.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
That's how they riot against a society.
And you're not
turn
alone.
around with the slap in the face and pass an anti-Asian Asian hate law.
Well, see, it wasn't an Asian hate law. You have to, listen, you have to actually look up the actual law. It's not the Asian hate law. It's not we have to make sure that we are intelligently speaking on things that, if you don't know, don't talk about it, but it's not called the Asian hate law. So that's propaganda. That's what they want you to spread, to make you think they did not, they had the people to back them. The Senate, the House, Congress didn't do it. Congress voted, somebody did, the Senate did not vote on it. So it wasn't, the Senate voted on the Asian hate, well, you call it the Asian hate bill. I don't know the number of it, but they voted on it. So we need to back up the voting, John Lewis bill. We need all the bills out there that the lynching bill. We are not calling, we're not writing letters. And I'm telling you, if we write the letters, if we make the calls, they have to address it. But you want to talk about it, but when was the last time you called your senator or your congressman? I called mine this morning.
I call mine all the time. As a matter of fact, I got an email from him today.
That's what I'm saying. Use the
I
call
my congressman. I write him.
Right. So this is what I'm talking about. So instead of the reason why these laws are not being passed is because we don't have enough people backing it. They had enough people backing that bill. If we come together and get things done, one bill at a time, 2 bills at a, however you want it, but we have to say the UNIA is the full force, and we're always calling every week. We're always writing letters on behalf of the UNIA, on behalf of ourselves. So if we're going to speak things, we have to speak it intelligently. We can't talk their propaganda, because all we're doing is spreading the lies just like they want us to.
I understand. Thank you, sister. But yes. Yeah, we gotta be careful with that. I don't even know what to say. Any other comments or questions in regards to what's been said?
President John, I have been in the study group a lot, but are we supposed to stick to the reading specifically and get through the reading first, or or is it, or we jump in every so often?
Well, we read the lesson the week before. So last week we read lesson 8. Then we give a week to go over the lesson. And then the following Tuesday, the first thing we do is go over the questions from the previous lesson. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour. But that's the first thing, is go over the questions from the previous lesson, and then we read the lesson for the night. So that's what we were getting ready to go into. was the reading for tonight. But
I can't
in regards to
because the verse have kind of drags along. I don't ever get a chance to get to the reading. It's it's kind of late.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind for the next lesson. But in regards to what the sister said and what the brother said, I remember what I was thinking. The only thing that comes to my mind is, again, definition. So when we say they and we, who are they? Who are we? We're a small group when we really think about it. And we've got to get our numbers bigger. And from what I understand in regards to politics, political policy, it's not necessarily who has the best idea or who's even in the room. It's just in a political process, it's who gets the most votes. So, we have to have some type of agenda. We have to organize our people under that agenda, and we have to cast our ballot or cast our votes to change those policies. But, we all have certain opinions about things, but when we say they, they are not just a well-organized machine, but they are organized, and we're not necessarily organized. So those were the things that came to my mind. But yeah, we do need to get to the reading for tonight. Brother Macy, if you want to read, let us know.
Gotcha. Well, President John, I wanted to say one thing about just kind of this lesson that real quick. I look at it like a hammer. You can use that hammer to bust heads, a lot of heads. I think, but when those heads get bust, we could throw it away. A government is a tool, and we often think about it as a person or a group of people, like the white man or whatever. But I think Garvey wants us to understand and kind of building up to understand our dominion over using all the tools that's in society and using the tool of government to our benefit. I think is what the ultimate thing that Garvey wants us to get from this, that we could use all things really.
Thank you, Brother Mason.
All right.
But yeah, we the government is a tool of the people. It's made of the people. The policies created by the people. So we have to organize and make our voices heard.
All right.
Thank you, Brother Mason.
That's 9. Diplomacy. Diplomacy is a word used to express the peculiar relationship between nations. Diplomacy is a relationship that nations use to conduct their communications or approach in dealing with matters of state and to affect the relationships of a certain nature between them. In the broader sense, diplomacy means the thoughtful and careful consideration of words and ideas expressed to reduce the words and ideas to the level of being the least offensive and carry the force of what is desired to the maximum. To be a diplomat of one has to be very careful in his expression before indulging in them. He must think seriously and calculatingly so that his thoughts and words may have the desired effect without arousing suspicion or inviting hostility. You must first be a very skillful thinker and psychologist to be a diplomat. A diplomat never reveals his true state of mind, never reveals his hand in dealing with a situation. He always keeps a line of defense for whatever he says or does in reserve. The diplomat never talks before he thinks. He thinks an idea over several times before he expresses it. The idea is that he must not be found wanting or on the wrong side of any question. If he is found on the wrong side, his efforts at diplomacy fail. He must be able to read other people's minds and intentions and use that knowledge to safeguard and protect himself and the interests he represents. A skillful diplomat is always master of the situation. He's able to fool or deceive others to gain his point. He never exposes himself to be taken advantage of. He always leaves from danger or trouble. His language is always couched in a manner to carry weight in the particular direction, but at the same time, not to be so offensive or revealing as to cause the person dealt with to immediately jump at conclusions by the completeness of the thought expressed. In fact, diplomat always gives out expression that carry double meaning or more than double meanings, so that if one interpretation is dangerous to affecting a good relationship, he can always fall back and say it was not intended that way. In diplomacy, if you mean to take advantage of the other person, never open a suggestion, but gauge your words most carefully to ultimately win that in view, without expressing it in the raw. A good way to get good results is to actually feed your opponent with good words that mean nothing. And then when you come down to the business part, hold your ground, but still use good and pleasant words to win. Never approach anything out of in an offensive manner. To the contrary, win them with the perfect smile in the most gentle manner. Do this even with your enemy, until your enemy has positively delivered himself, and there is no other alternative than show your hand. Never show your hand at the start. The idea is to make friends and to get results rather than make enemies and lose results. The idea is to make friends and get results rather than lose results. This must be applied to all phases of organization work, dealing with the race and dealing with others of other races. It is said that a kind word turneth away wrath. It is good diplomacy. If a man is going to kill you by threatening you, it is best to smile with him before he actually carries out the intention, so as to prevent him from doing so by showing him a smile rather than to suggest the gravity of your indignation, which will cause him to think that you are going to kill him first. Then he will surely kill you in self-defense, even though he first threatened you. Many of men have been killed with their assailant when their assailant did not really mean to kill them, but only to bluff them. But in taking the matter too seriously, he gets killed by the man protecting himself after his threat to keep from being killed. Never lose your head in dealing with the problem, because in doing so, you are bound to blunder and ultimately lose. If you are in an accident where you come face to face with death, don't lose your head, because you may need your calm and collective judgment to save your life. The moment you lose your head, you are taking chances. The odds are against you. Morally, a diplomat must be a scamp, in that he must be a mental twister. He cannot deal with affairs with a clean conscience, because he is too to anticipate the evil of other men's designs. Because the world and mankind are immoral and dishonest in their behaviors, he necessarily has to adopt such a method as to safeguard himself or his interests from such design. You cannot be a true Christian before the act, but become so afterwards by repentance, which is personal. If you are protecting the interests of others, you have to sink your own personality, but still recognize the fact that you are responsible to those others. Therefore, you have to adopt all the methods of diplomacy to protect others. Hence, you cannot do so with a Christian soul, because most of the souls you are dealing with are corrupt. If you have dealt with them, you have won your point. If there was any act that was immoral or crooked which enabled you to win your point, then pray afterwards for forgiveness, but do not before. Be sure that the act is done and leave the act where it is. If it is in the interest of others, then square your conscience with God. The truth is going to affect your cause, then never speak of it, but go around it in every kind of ambiguous way to justify your lie to save the cause. If you have won your cause by a lie, all right, trying to see where was that. Never give up in okay. Never give up in seeking support. If one logic fails, use another until you have talked out your opponent by semblance of justification. You may say, I don't mean so and so. It was not the way I intended it. I have a different idea entirely. You are misunderstanding me. You have a misconception of what I mean. You probably didn't hear me when I said so and so. I may admit that I was not clear enough. I didn't mean what you say. Then be able to build up a new argument on that and let the thing that you are arguing about take a back seat so that they will forget what you were arguing about and take you up on the other things you have said and make that the debate. Thereby, you leave the situation where it was for another time. Always try to lead the other fellow away from the true idea. If you're on the wrong side, build up a new argument and hold him on that until you have worn him out. Let him say this is not the argument, then still persist in something else. Always profess friendship for your enemy so as to disarm him. Don't refer to him as Mr. Brown. Say, my good friend, Mr. Brown. I cannot understand why my good friend is so opposed to me. I have always thought of him as a kindly disposed man and a very good fellow. But always watch him. Don't take any chances. Offer your enemy gifts. Take your that you can afford to lose, so as to win him like the Greeks bringing gifts. Your words must be formed and positive when you want to commit other people. For instance, do you intend to pay my money? Have you made your mind to answer my letter? Always let it be a question that can be answered with a yes or no. Don't suggest to anybody in long sentences. When you ought to commit yourself, do so in a veiled language and never finally commit yourself until you are ready to close the matter. Always try to escape giving yes or no to any question that is important. If you have to say yes or no, do so in long explanations so that you may escape out of the explanation from the positive answer. If trouble is involved, it becomes your defense. Always try to leave in your remark or words room for controversy or denial of meaning as decided on by the other party. When you want to protect yourself and trap the other fellow, let him write you short sentences by leading him up to such a manner of reply. When you have to answer, make your sentences long and capable of taking many interpretations. If you want to close the matter directly to your interest, then clinch it by accepting his argument in short sentences that cannot be misunderstood in law or arbitration. When you are inviting explanations, make your sentences very short and to the point. When you are asked to give explanations, consider carefully if you should make your sentences long or short. Use discretion. Always allow the other fellow to talk first by leading him. Let him talk of everything in his manner so that you may know your man. Never let him lead you out. Always be reserved. In a word, be a good listener. Then you have everything on the other fellow. Decide the situation and take action. To get a man to talk, offer him courtesy, offer him a drink, a cigar, etc. Say, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? How have you been doing lately? Are you comfortable where you live? What do you think of so and so? If he is reticent, you know you have a hard customer to deal with. Then find out his weakness by investigating. And when you find it, invite him back again. Cater to that weakness. His weakness may be for ladies. Invite him to meet your best friend and get your friend to prompt him and tell you what you could not get from him yourself. If you are dealing with the opposite sex, do the same thing. If he is addicted to drinking, give him a few extra drinks and let him talk. But you must not drink as much as he. Otherwise, you will be in the same position. Use your skill in letting him believe that you are drinking too, but don't drink. If you cannot get him by himself, get his friend to tell you all he knows about him. If the knowledge possessed by the person is important to you, never stop following him, even if you have to go 6,000 miles, directly or indirectly, to get your information. You may get it through an agent, a neighbor of his, or a person he does business with. Follow every clue of an association until you get your information about the subject. Never accept invitations from your enemies. Always find some excuse with kind thanks. If you have once injured a man, never trust him completely because he is always waiting for his chance to get even with you. Never talk your personal business or the business of your cause to a stranger. Tell him nothing until you know him sufficiently. Don't accept complete friendships on first approach. Carefully find out if he or she is worthy of being a good and true friend. Otherwise, you may find yourself in the ditch. Never give valuable papers or anything of value to a first acquaintance or a cordial friend or neighbor to keep it. If the documents are very valuable by way of information, don't allow even members of your own household to keep them. Keep them secretly, privately, because you don't know who may give you away. Even innocently, there is always a third person in everybody's life. Be careful of that third person. That person may come between a man and his wife, a brother and his brother, a sister and her sister, a father and his children, a mother and her children. Remember, there is always a third person, and that third person may not like you very much. Always be careful of the second person, because the third person always comes in through the second person. You may quarrel with the second person sometimes, and in the passion of revenge, which you may regret afterwards, the second person may reveal your secrets. Therefore, take your secrets to the grave and only let God know about them. Never lose your head and divulge anything that would mean trouble for you with the law. The person who has the secret may change his mind about you, turn you in, even after 20 years. Many people get into trouble without knowing where their trouble comes from. Sometimes it comes right from your own home by talking too much in your own home and by the circles in your home not appreciating your position. The innocently give the innocently give the information out to other parties who are not interested in you, but are probably interested in seeing that the one you have offended gets justice. Therefore, the person prefers to see you hang rather than see his friend whom you have injured go without justice because of what you might have done to the person in your secret.
Thank you, First Vice President Brother Macias. And that completes the reading for Lesson 9, Diplomacy. A lot of information there. A little bit of insight into Garvey's mentality, in regards to organizing later in his life. But I'll open the floor for a few minutes. Any questions or comments in regards to what was read?
So he kind of, bring up some things that could be considered, I guess, I mean, I don't want to say like deceitful, but the way he talks about dealing with the diplomats was kind of somewhat, playing your hand a little bit or being tricky or sneaky, not really divulging what you really want to accomplish, but letting them kind of give you things without asking, I guess. But it sounds a lot like modern politics, when we think about it. So
Yeah, and excellent comment. When we take a step back and look at it, we just read lesson 8, was it? Social system. Just talked about, society, government, laws, leaders, policymakers, and now he's talking about us as diplomats. Again, we got to go back to, we have to survive where we are. We have to interact where we are. But at the same time, we have a larger goal, So in the process of us working with our local politicians, we can't, show our better hand of, what we want to do on the continent.
Yeah, it's definitely double talk, whereas you want to hide what it is your true intentions are, and it's the same thing that unfortunately Machiavelli also preached. You tell them one thing, because once they find out what your true goal is, they may try to block you. Especially if the person, because I think most of the time in this, he was talking about somebody that you don't get along with. So the moment they know what your true goal is, they're going to try to do everything to block you. So you try to woo that person in by always speaking kindly to them, even though you don't really even like them yourself, and always protect your own interests by keeping your interest only with you and a few close people that share that same interest.
This is a tough lesson. He talks a lot about like the ends justifies the means, so to speak. There's some things that you may have to do, some things you may have to say, but we have to understand our larger goals. We still have to maintain our morals, but as I've heard before, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. But we do what we got to do, and we ask for permission later or forgiveness later. But yeah, this is a very straightforward, raw lesson. Again, for the leadership, not for everybody. These are Garvey's words. This is his opinions. I'm trying to find what he was saying. Anybody else got any comments, questions?
Yes, President John. This is Chaplain Mitchell. I'm sorry I tuned in late, but one of the things about the diplomacy, I think that Marcus Garvey touched on, is you got to know how to speak to people. When we are in a leadership role, there is a particular science, especially in politics, when we're speaking to people. So I'm from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So I deal with politicians quite frequently, and it's a certain way that you talk to them. Like you said, you can't really reveal everything that you want to do, or you will be stopped. So you got to be very clever in speaking to politicians to get policies passed and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's a lot in this lesson. Thank you, Chaplain Mitchell. It's tough to get questions for this one. It's 9:37, a couple minutes over. Does anybody can think of what they would consider a hidden lesson in this?
Win at all costs.
I'm with them.
Win for your people at all costs.
One thing, the word that came to my mind was coercion, though. But getting people on the same page mentally, convincing someone of support, whether it's whether you are genuine towards that person or not, but again, doing what you got to do. Yeah, this is one I had. If you have dealt with them and you have won your point, there was any act that was immoral or crooked, which enabled you to win your point, then pray afterwards for forgiveness, but not before. Be sure that the act is done and leave the act where it is. If it is in the interest of others, then square your conscience with God. It's a tough lesson, but it's not the first lesson. So again, we got to fall back on the foundation of the previous lessons. Intelligence, leadership, aims and objectives, elocution, God, Christ, character, social system, and now we're getting into diplomacy. Any closing comments? Five after, we're supposed to close 5 minutes ago. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just review lesson 9 this week. We'll have some questions from lesson 9. I don't know how many. This single could talk lesson any questions for. And then we'll read lesson 10, which is economy, which is, we talk a lot about economy. And we'll see what Bobby's perspective is on economy. So I encourage everybody to attend next week, and won't belabor this any longer. Repeat after me. One God.
One God.
One aim.
One
One
aim.
aim.
One destiny.
One
destiny.
Africa for the African.
Africa for the Africans.
For the African.
Those at home and those abroad.
Those at home and those abroad.
All right, family. Y'all have a good week, and you'll have lesson 10 next week.
Race first.
All right, race first. Race first.
Race first.
Race first.
Hey, Brother John, you still there?